Stephen Pinsky, presiding over our today's services. Thank you, Rabbi.
Please be seated. Before we begin the service, I would ask the four of you who have ribbons if you would stand up. The ribbons are a remnant of an ancient custom. In biblical times, when someone died, people would tear their clothing thereafter for Jewish history, and they would wear the torn clothing for 30 days as a sign of mourning, so people would treat them in a special way. At the end of the 30 days, people didn't have the amount of clothing we do. They were allowed to sew the clothing back together so they could wear it again, but never in such a way that it appeared it had not been torn. And the idea, as difficult as it feels right now, is we heal, but the tear within us becomes a part of who we become. And if I did this right, and you're all wearing black, I can't see if I did this right. No, I think it's wrong, actually. It's not a big right there. It should be over here. It should be, the three of you should be on the other side.
This is our left.
All right, that's your left, but yours should be on the other side.
No, this is my left.
It shouldn't be on the same side as yours.
Oh, first. Why should yours be?
Give me a second.
Okay.
Now I'll say it. You'll notice that your children are wearing it on the opposite side than you are. Only children wear the ribbon over the heart. Everyone else wears it on the opposite side. And if you'd repeat after me in Hebrew and in English, Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
Dayan ha'emet.
Dayan ha'emet.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God,
Blessed are you, O Lord our God,
ruler of the universe,
ruler of the universe,
judge of truth.
judge of truth.
Amen.
Amen.
Out of the depths we call unto thee, O God. In thy hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Thy loving kindness is never withdrawn from us, but ever abides with us in death as in life. In thy wisdom thou hast laid upon us this heavy burden. May us so also in thy mercy give us the strength to bear it. Guide and sustain us lest we stray from thy paths. Give us that strength of faith which shall keep us from murmuring against the justice of thy dispensation, even when thou dost afflict us. Grant us, we pray thee, the understanding which shall enable us to recognize that the hand that woundeth is the hand that bindeth up again. Thou art the life of all life. In this hour of grief, let us listen to the voice of the psalmist as he brings us a message of God's nearness, of our fellowship with God in light and in darkness, in joy and in sorrow, in life and in death. Etza einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri, Ezri me'im Adonai al shemayim va'aretz. Al yitein lamut reglecha, al yanum shamrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shemer Yisrael. Adonai shamrecha, Adonai tzilach ad yad yaminecha. Yamam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yirech balayla. Adonai yishmarecha mikol yabdecha. Yishmar Adonai nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzeitach havuecha me'atavi ad olam. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains, from whence shall my help come? My help cometh from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel doth neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall keep thee from all evil. He shall keep thy soul. The Lord shall guard thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth and forevermore. Adonai ma Adam v'tadiehu ben enosh v'chashvehu. Adam lehevel dema yamav ketzel over. Baboka yatzitz v'chalaf le'erv melel v'yavesh. Tashev enosh adaka v'tomer shuva v'nei Adam. Lohachu esilu zot shavinu yachritam. Ki lo v'moto yikach hakol lo yered acharav kavodo. Poda Adonai nefesh avadav. V'lo yeshmo kol hachosim bo. O Lord, what is man that thou takest knowledge of him? or the Son of Man that makest account of him? Man is like unto vanity. His days are as a shadow that passeth away. In the morning he flourisheth and groweth up. In the evening he is cut down and withereth. Thou turnest man to contrition, and sayest, Return ye children of men. Oh, that they were wise, that they would consider their latter end. For man dieth, he shall carry nothing away. His glory shall not descend after him. But the Lord redeemeth the souls of his servants, and none of them that trust in God shall be forsaken. Death has summoned our beloved Arnold Blank. Our souls cry out unto thee, O Lord, what is man? Is he the creature of dust whose destiny it is but to return to the dust from which he came? The ancient sages taught us the spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord. Not even the darkness of death can extinguish God's light, which he has kindled in the sanctuary of our souls. Therefore, God, we thank thee in this solemn hour for that which was deathless in the life of our cherished Arnie Blank, and which is now revealed to us in all its beauty, for his love that united us in life, and which death cannot sever, for his companionship which we shared along life's path, and which still continue through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and his mind which brought us joy and happiness, and now will become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, we give thee our praise. Grant unto us, O Lord, the strength of all the generations of our people, who in the face of bereavement proclaimed Adonai Natan, v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. The Lord hath given, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Adonai Natan, Lord, thou hast given. Thou hast given to us our dear Arnie Blank for all that was good and endearing in his life. We offer the deeper thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, and Lord, thou hast taken, thou hast called him unto thyself. We pray thee, O God, for the courage to make our broken hearts an altar, before which we acknowledge thy sovereignty and thy love, as we say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. May thy name be blessed now and forevermore. Amen. Dear Marilyn, dear Judy and David, dear Lauren and Barry, dear Michael, dear Lindsay and Kevin, dear Danielle and Janie, dear Carly, dear Justin and Nicole, dear family and friends all. As you surely know, Marilyn, because I most certainly mentioned it to your family and to you in passing several times during the very loving and the very caring conversation which we shared as we, you Marilyn and you Lauren and Barry, and you Lindsay and Kevin and Danielle and Janie and Carly and Justin, as we sat around your dining room table, Marilyn, in a setting in which your husband and your father-in-law and your grandfather would have been so very comfortable. As you know, I retired from congregational life 11 years ago, after 42 years, serving as a rabbi in Israel in 4 very different congregations, in Great Neck on Long Island, in Tenafly, New Jersey, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and finally 17 years as a rabbi of Temple Beth Torah in Wellington here in Palm Beach County. I have officiated at countless baby namings and brisses and b'nai mitzvah, and of course weddings and funerals. I am certainly no stranger to the Jewish life cycle, the laughter and the tears of our people. And I've stood in this sacred place and dozens like it for well more than 5 decades to tell the stories of those men and women who have filled our lives and with their love and their commitment, their victories and their defeats, their hopes and their dreams. And now, after more than a half-century of serving as a rabbi, I cannot help but think of the countless faces whom I have loved and who are missing from our lives. I can name so many of those names, and I often do. But to be perfectly honest, Marilyn, I have rarely felt quite so inadequate about telling the story of a man who was so very loved by a family whom I have, after all, only just met. And then for barely more than an hour, I am, to be perfectly honest, not at all exactly sure what makes this moment so difficult for me, or why I found it so very daunting to find the correct words to speak about your husband, Marilyn, and your father, Judy, and Lauren, and Michael, and your father-in-law, David and Barry, and your grandfather, Lindsay, and Danielle, and Janie, and Carly, and Justin. Perhaps it is because your description of his life was so full and so animated and so loving. Your words were indeed so very eloquent and so deeply felt. Or it might be because of the fact that I was really smitten by your entire family. You are also enormously bright and so very easy to like and to relate to. Or it might be that your description of Arnie in so many different ways sounded like what my family might say about me, given in a similar situation. And I wish that I had had the joy of meeting and knowing Arnie. Your stories were so filled with joy and heavy with sadness that I knew that whatever I would say about Arnie would not even approximate the eloquence and the depth of the words which you all used as we spoke together, and the words which you will undoubtedly speak once again in just a few minutes. So for whatever reasons, these words did not come easily to me last night as I sat down at my desktop computer to put order to the emotions I felt and the stories which you shared with me in such abundance. But I do know that words must indeed be spoken about your husband and your father-in-law and your grandfather. Words of caring, words of celebration, but mostly words of love, reflecting a man whose life ended far before any of you were really ready to say your goodbyes. A man whose life touched so many, a life which was in so many different ways filled with enormous meaning and with genuine beauty. So how does one express the love that each of you felt for your dear husband and your cherished father and your beloved father-in-law and your very deeply missed grandfather, as well as the immeasurable love which he felt for each of you? And how does one do all of this when the words seem so inadequate to the loss and to the love? So indeed, what can I say about Arnold Blank that anyone who knew him and anyone who loved him does not already know? Well, I suppose that I could begin by saying what you said, Marilyn, as we spoke together yesterday. You said without a moment's hesitation that Arnie, above all else, absolutely loved his family, even after I asked you not to speak about his relationship with all of you until you could together paint a portrait of your husband and your dad and your grandfather. And so you, Lauren, picked up the baton and said, with a smile, that your dad was so very funny, that he had the very best sense of humor one could possibly imagine, to which you all chimed in by saying one after another that Arnie was a storyteller par excellence. Stories, some of which were real, and others, many others, which were real only in his own imagination. One of you adding then that he was often, very often, inappropriate, and that he could so very easily indeed go beyond the boundaries. But that nonetheless there are, as one of his grandchildren pointed out, real magic in the stories that he told and retold, including, of course, the description of who, when, and where one person or another happened to lose his or her virginity, of how he told each of his children and then his grandchildren that there was a baby on the roof and that they needed to be quiet so as not to wake the infant, or his fondness for creating the apocryphal tale of how you, Marilyn, proposed to him in his car, even somehow getting down on your knee, asking for his hand. And then none of the grandchild said that their grandfather just loved food, any kind of food, that he would indeed quip that he was on a seafood diet. I'm going to use this line a lot. Meaning, of course, that any food he saw, he would eat, even if that food just happened to be on someone else's dinner plate. Indeed, everything he saw, as you said, he would eat. And then one of you added that he just loved his wife's cooking and that he adored any meat which happened to be on the bone, never, of course, failing to somehow get sauce all over his shirt. And then you all just opened up as you continued to paint such a loving portrait of your husband and your father and your grandfather. One of you adding that Arnie was so incredibly charming, that he talked with every waitress who happened to be serving his table, even if he invariably managed to get her name wrong, and that he did, above all else, as you said, Lindsay, had a particular eye for the female form. That he missed nothing about any woman he happened to meet, whether it happened to be the change of the color of her hair or the fact that she had just had, your words, a boob job. All of you making sure that I understood, which I did, that he might have loved all women, but that he adored your mother and your grandmother. And then you all continued by saying that he was so quick-witted, an astounding Jeopardy player, and so incredibly bright, that he was a gentleman in so many ways, especially when he was on the golf course or playing poker with his buddies, always knowing, of course, his friends' tells and making the funniest bets. Indeed, when Arnie was no longer able to participate in his regular game, the fun of the game seemed to diminish appreciably for each of his many friends. And then one of you pointed out that your grandfather was always the very smartest guy in the room, and that he was an extraordinarily good student, finishing in his undergraduate and law studies at the University of Maryland in just 6 years, and placing 5th among all the men and women taking the bar exam in his state upon completion of his law studies, adding that he was an enormously successful lawyer, but never, ever would he make anyone feel uncomfortable by his very keen mind or his very considerable legal successes. You're concluding, Janie, that your grandfather always encouraged others to be their very best, and especially supported his 5 grandchildren in any activity in which they happened to be involved. And you're concluding, Carly, that your grandfather always put other people's feelings before his own needs and worried a great deal about his family's health and, most of all, their happiness. But then you all agreed that your husband and your father and your father-in-law and your grandfather was, above all else, a family man who was born 85 years ago on June 16, 1939 in Chester, Pennsylvania, and who grew up in that city until his family moved from Pennsylvania to Silver Springs, Maryland, when he was a teenager. That his father, Irving, whom everyone, of course, called Sonny, supported himself and his family working in sales, spending most of his career working for the old Sears Roebuck and Company, while his mother, Dorothy, whom Sonny always called Dottie, was a homemaker who brought up Arnie and his younger siblings, Arlene and Mel. You're remembering, Lauren, that his mother never, ever got over the loss of her daughter, Arlene, who died at the age of 26 from an aneurysm, a loss which she carried with her until her own passing. Arnie remaining close to his parents and, of course, to his brother Mel throughout their lives, and especially having a special place in his heart for his grandfather Meyer, the patriarch of the family, whom Arnie especially idolized and who played a very special role in his growing up years. That Arnie attended public schools first in Chester and graduated from Blair High School in Silver Springs. Arnie, of course, often regaling his family with story after story of his early years, some true and others maybe not. That while a high school student, the very eligible Arnold Blank, who was all of 15 years old, met the very lovely Marilyn Litvinsky, who was at the time of the meeting only 13 years old. The two meeting at a sock hop sponsored by the local JCC. That Marilyn was being courted at the dance by 2 fellows, and so the 2 guys flipped a coin as to who would get to pursue the beautiful 13-year-old. And Arnie won, or lost, as he sometimes would say, facetiously. In any event, the 2 began dating and never looked back, even if Marilyn's parents insisted that she date other fellows when Arnie left to study at the university. The 2 did, of course, end up together when Marilyn began her own studies at the University of Maryland, where she was a student for just 1 year, dropping out of college when she and Arnie were married on June 11, 1961, Marilyn opting out of school so that she could support herself and her new husband, who was still a law school student. Marilyn working as a secretary for NASA, where she recalls meeting almost all of the original American astronauts. The beginning of a marriage which was to last for the next 63 years, years in which you all agreed Arnie was completely obsessed with Marilyn. She was, as one of you said, his everything. The 2 of them sharing an infatuation which actually grew and deepened as the decades passed. The young couple beginning their married life in a 3rd-floor walk-up apartment on Donner Avenue in Laurel, Maryland, and then moving, once Arnie finished law school and passed the bar, into a 2-bedroom apartment on Sligo Avenue in Silver Springs, a home into which Arnie and Marilyn welcomed their first child, a daughter, Judy, born in 1964. Arnie supporting his wife and newborn child, working for a law firm in Washington, D.C., until he opened his own law firm in suburban Prince George's County, whereupon the family moved into a large apartment on Layton Court, a home into which they welcomed their second child. I hope I got that straight. Well, if I did, you can correct it for your friends. Okay. Another daughter, Lauren, born in 1967, the moment in which the two agreed to finally quit smoking. Remaining in the Layton Court apartment, where they completed their family by welcoming finally a son, Michael, born in 1974. The family, now complete, moving into their first home on Brimfield Court in Potomac, the home in which all three blank children grew up, along with their poodle, Samantha. Arnie and Marilyn sharing a wonderful life together, along with their children in their new home, amassing a very large group of friends, many of whom became integral parts of their lives, and so many of whom ultimately ended up here in South Florida. Arnie, of course, practicing law while Marilyn worked as a paralegal and office manager in his law office. Arnie and Marilyn living in Potomac until they purchased a townhouse in Rockville, Maryland, the home which their grandchildren remember with special fondness for the family dinners shared together on Sunday evenings. That in 1999, Arnie and Marilyn purchased the first of 3 homes they were to own in the Ballin Isles Country Club here in Palm Beach Gardens. Marilyn referring to Arnie and herself as the wandering Jews of Ballin Isles, moving from a small house in the club to a slightly larger home, and finally into their current home on Vintage Isle Lane, which they purchased when they both retired in 2007. A home large enough for Marilyn to entertain her many friends and spacious enough to welcome her children and her grandchildren. Arnie just loving golf, and Marilyn, I'm sorry to say, hating it. And he just adoring the poker games he regularly played with his buddies. The two sharing a really great social life in Ballin Isles. But Marilyn, who wanted something just a bit more worthwhile to fill her time, founded a nonprofit educational organization, Insight Through Education, which raised funds to support Holocaust awareness, eventually being joined in her work by her daughter Judy, who became, along with her husband David, a part-time resident in Ballin Isles. That in 2008, both Marilyn and Arnie were diagnosed with cancer. Marilyn with breast cancer, which was successfully treated, with her becoming a breast cancer survivor, while Arnie was diagnosed with a cancer which eventually morphed into a metastatic renal cell cancer, which eventually metastasized to his liver, was operated on, but which over the years in which Arnie, with Marilyn at his side, went to hell and back as they fought the spread of the disease with the help of their 2 extraordinary aides, Lorna and Andrea, who in so many ways made it possible for Arnie to survive as long as he did, even as they also deepened the quality of his life, even treating Arnie with homeopathic Jamaican medicines. Arnie really loving Lorna and Andrea, always so appreciative for whatever they were able to do for him, until Arnie slipped in his bedroom last December, was taken to the hospital, was then placed under Trustbridge hospice care, managing somehow to bounce back, holding on just a bit longer, bonus time, until his health spiraled downward this past weekend, when Trustbridge returned to provide him first with comfort care and then critical care, until soon after Marilyn left the room, Arnie peacefully passed away early Tuesday morning. That as a father, and you will hear much more about the relationships which he shared with his family in just a few moments, Arnie was, as you said, Lauren, a cherished parent who inserted himself in so many different ways in the lives of his 2 daughters, Judy and Lauren, and of course in the life of his son, Michael. Remembered both as an inveterate game player, Rummikub and the word game Boggle, to name just a couple of the games which he used to play with his kids, as well as a dad who was always there to be his 3 children's staunchest supporters. Remembered by Judy via an email which she sent as she flew back to Florida from a wedding which she and David were attending in Australia, for the wonderful summers which her family shared together in Ocean City, Maryland, and Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. A father who could not have been prouder than he was of his 3 children, proud of the people they became, of the lives they led, of the careers they chose, of the families his daughters created. Remembered by becoming then a welcoming father-in-law to Judy's husband David and to Lauren's husband Barry. Remembered by Barry as a father-in-law who expected his sons-in-law to lovingly care for his daughters and who shared often very inappropriate stories with him. While Arnie shared a very special relationship with his son-in-law David because of the fact that they both lived here in South Florida, an especially close and deeply respectful relationship. And finally, Arnie became an amazing grandpa to Marilyn's grandma, to Judy and David's daughters, Lindsay and Danielle and Janie, and a loving pop-pop to Marilyn's Mimi, to Lauren and Barry's children, Carly, and finally a grandson, Justin. Blessed with the years to become, as you said, completely obsessed by his beautiful 5 grandchildren, so close to each of them. Blessed with the years to see each of them grow and to begin their own lives. To share in the joy of his granddaughter Lindsay's marriage to Kevin Adobe, and to await with special joy, a little pressure on all of you, for the moment that he and Marilyn will become great-grandparents. Each, his 3 children and their spouses, and perhaps most of all his 5 grandchildren, each becoming his tomorrow, his bit of eternity. And now his story becomes each of yours, to tell and to retell, the door of a door, from generation to generation for the rest of your lives. And who better to speak of Arnie's long and incredibly full life than his daughter Judy and her husband David, and then Lauren, his daughter Lauren, followed by his 5 grandchildren, Lindsay and Carly and Janie, I will speak, followed them by his dear friend Aaron Linchuk, I couldn't read my writing, Linchuk, then followed by a friend Barry Helfand, who will speak via Skype, and finally, possibly by a few words spoken by his dear life partner, Marilyn. Judy and David, you're first.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I've been thinking for so long about what I would say when this day finally came, but I always drew a blank, no pun intended. Not because I had nothing to say, but because there is so much I want to say, and even more so because just the thought of losing my dad was something hard to accept. My dad was my hero and my champion throughout my life, and I was his little Judy from the day I was born until literally the very end. I'll never be able to hear that phrase again without crying. He was my mom's everything, the loving center of her universe, and she in turn was his North Star, his devoted and singular partner in life. He loved his family fiercely and without compromise. He was our family's staunch patriarch. He was the king, my mom, the big Bamu, and us kids, Lauren, Michael, and I, were the monkeys. For those of you here who knew my dad and his zest for life, you can easily imagine that growing up with him made life so extraordinary. He was a big and gregarious personality. He loved to joke around and make games of everything, often leading to his signature laugh that was so intense that it would lead to tears running down his face. We called it his laugh cry, and it always lit up the room. Okay. Shoot. It was always pretty easy to induce these laugh cry episodes because my father just loved to be around and banter with all of his kids and grandkids. He had boundless love and in turn made our lives richer. I want to share a few standout memories of my relationship with my father. As a kid, I used to imitate the gymnast Olga Korbut, mimicking how she threw her hands in the air and with her chest out and feet planted. My dad ate it up. Through the years and until the end, he'd ask me to do my gymnastics routine. Even as a 60-year-old woman, I'd strike that ridiculous pose for him, anything to get a smile. He liked to reminisce about my days in musical theater and my role as Ado Annie in a high school production of Oklahoma. On one of my last visits, just a few weeks ago, I sang I Can't Say No for him. It made him happy. After all, who could say no to my cajoling dad? I don't remember too much about my Glee Club days at Michigan, but I'll always remember my parents coming to a concert at Rackham Hall. I was so excited about my mom and dad being in attendance that I actually jumped from my seat in audience and performed My Heart Belongs to Daddy. How so very true are those lyrics. And during the last 2 years, he was extremely enthusiastic and proud of my commitment to Insight Through Education in my role as a leader and co-president. My involvement in the organization was not by accident. It was inspired by my mom and her dedication, all encouraged by my supportive and giving father. He truly wanted to see a better world for his grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be. And he saw that Insight could have a hand in that. As I said, my dad has always been there for me. He, along with my mom, held me tight and got me through a major surgery when I was just 13 years old. He supported my decision to leave home for the University of Michigan and then spend a few years in Boston to be with David. He helped David and me establish ourselves in Maryland after we got married, and he stood by us when we nearly moved to Las Vegas and ultimately to Michigan. I was so fortunate to become a snowbird and spend the last 6 winters in Florida, just a few minutes from my parents. Even as I watched my dad steadily decline, it was a blessing to see him often, to talk, to laugh, to eat together, and to share memories. Remarkably, my dad never complained despite the pain he was enduring. He just said, "Someone has it worse than me." I could tell more personal stories, but time is limited, so I want to talk a little bit more about the people he adored and he cherished. My dad had lots of favorite things. At first, I figured good food was A1 tops on his list, but then again, it might have been golf. If you pit Peking duck from the Gourmet Inn in Virginia against a golf game, it would be a very close call. But golf was his passion. I'm not much of a player, but I know this. My dad could sink a putt from anywhere, and you can be sure he'd tell you all about it. He was also a shark at the poker table and was so happy when his pockets were full after his weekly game at the club. He absolutely loved his golf and poker buddies. Since I believe in an afterlife, I'm sure he'll be hanging out with some of his pals, Buddy, Freddie, Charlie, Alan, and Seth in heaven. My dad had many hobbies through the years. Among them, he took flying lessons, though eventually he got smart and let the pilots on United, Delta, and Southwest handle the cockpit. He also got into boating in a big way. He loved to fill his weekends by taking us out all in the blank check, that was as the boat was named, maneuvering through the Chesapeake Bay and finding great places to dock for a Maryland crab feast. I told you he loves food. It was great family time. There was even a time when he took up pipe smoking, and I'm glad to say that one didn't take. My father was really smart. It was almost intimidating. He seemed to know about everything, but even more, he had wisdom. He gave great advice and guidance about everything, from school to career to managing my own family. He just had a way of seeing the big picture. And he was so good to each of us, Lauren, Michael, and me. Through good times and rough patches, through it all, he stood strong and unrelenting in our corners, helping us make our way in the world. He was like that for the whole family, helping everyone endure the trauma of his sister Arlene's passing away at a young age, and tragically his brother Mel as well. A real joy in my dad's life was seeing his grandkids grow up. He loved to talk to each of them about their love lives. He was a real yenta that way. He would question them incessantly about their jobs. He loved to joke that Danielle was running Macy's and had become the chairman of the board of the entire company. He took an interest in all of our lives and had a unique relationship with each of them. We are so grateful that even as my dad's health was just beginning to decline, he was able to walk down the aisle with my mom and dance with Lindsay at her wedding nearly 5 years ago. He was just beaming that special night, and I know he will celebrate with us from above for future weddings. My dad loved his grandkids so much. The relationship was exactly what it should be, heartfelt, caring, and pure. Well, maybe not that pure. My dad did like to talk about, how should I say this? Assets. And then there were his friends. They meant so much to him. They traveled the world together. They played poker together. They golfed on some of the finest courses in the country, enjoyed incredible meals together. But they most of all laughed together. My dad easily made friends wherever he was. I know firsthand how strong the bonds were that he created with his Maryland buddies and his Ballin Isles friends. But my dad's greatest passion and singular most favorite person in the whole world was my mom. In their 63 years of marriage, plus all the years prior, beginning in middle school, they had a truly special, one-of-a-kind relationship. It was symbiotic. They were the perfect pair. Each of them had what the other needed. Well, here's some proof. They were able to work in my dad's law practice together every day without killing each other. And can you imagine that they have never, in their married lives, spent even a single night apart? How crazy is that? My mom and dad lived life hand in hand, side by side, every step of the way. They were inseparable. Mom, always know that Daddy is by your side in spirit, and we will always be here for you. One of their friends said to me on 2 separate occasions that they've never seen a marriage like that of my parents. She said, "We all love our husbands and have great marriages, but there's something different that you see and feel when it comes to your mom and dad." He adored her, and she would go to the ends of the earth for him, and it's the absolute truth. In the last several months, our mother has been an exceptional caretaker. The measures she took in ministering and overseeing his care went above and beyond. She wanted my dad on this earth for as many days as God would allow. When my mom finally realized that she needed help, she found the best of the best. No doubt Lorna and Andrea were able to make our father's life comfortable until the very end, while supporting my mom, who was so fragile during his decline. My mother truly loves these women. Thank you both Hi. Thank you both from the bottom of our hearts for the love you showed to both of my parents and my family. My father was tragically taken from us far too soon. It leaves a deep and painful void in all of our lives. But I take comfort in knowing that while he had his ups and downs, he lived a wonderful life and he left his mark. Dad, be at peace now. I will think of you every day.
And I'll always be.
No, for the rest of my life, and I will always be your little Judy. I love you, Daddy. Rest easy.
My father-in-law was such a sweet guy. He was rarely in a bad mood. He was fun-loving and always had a little twinkle in his eye. He was also mischievous. He loved a raunchy joke or a good zinger. He was also opinionated, but never really argumentative. All in all, as his many friends can tell you, he was fun to be around. But there were times when he tried his friends' patience, mostly on the golf course. He wasn't a big hitter or even an accurate player, but his short game was money. If he was behind a tree or in the shrubs, you had to watch out because he was about to get up and down. He had a knack for sinking 30 or 40-foot putts or to make the short knee knockers when it mattered. I'm pretty sure he made a lot of cash from his exasperated playing friends, who are laughing right over there. He had a little edge on the course, too. When others, he used to tell me, especially Freddie Stern, would have a short putt they needed to make, he'd gently say, "Look it over. Take your time." He got a big laugh when the putt would inevitably slide by. He loved to watch and talk golf. It was cruel punishment that he had to give up the game in the last several years. But we would talk time and again about his fondest memories. A birdie on the famous 17th water hole at TPC Sawgrass, winning a big tournament with his friend Harvey Minenberg, and being a heavily sought C or D player in the Ballon Isles groupers. To the end, he always had a putter nearby. He was also a sharp poker player, as you've heard. I think he was just confident and knew how to read other players, which is why I never accepted his invitation to play in the game. I had many other ways to lose money. To be a good poker player, you have to be smart, and smart he was. We'd watch Jeopardy together and had kind of a rivalry regarding who could answer more clues. He had a very impressively quick and broad range of knowledge. It was really impressive, the brain power that helped him, and it helped him in his career as an attorney. He handled a wide range of matters, but focused on personal injury. He secured a lot of settlement checks from insurance companies. He built his own successful practice with my mother-in-law at his side from scratch and flourished. And one thing you can never take away, he made it on his own. My father-in-law really loved kibitzing, and with me that usually involves sports, and especially Michigan football and Detroit Lions football. If one of my teams lost, I knew a snide comment was on the way. And sadly, my teams gave him a lot of ammunition over the years. On the other hand, he followed the Washington Football Club, the Redskins, until the very end for him. And he was supremely confident that they'd be in the Super Bowl every year. A guy can dream, right? You've heard about my in-laws and their many friends, so I won't go there again. But I will reiterate that he just loved going out with all of you and with others and grabbing a meal, and boy, did he love his food. He was a chef's dream. He was also a dry cleaner's dream. My father-in-law never actually started any of the diets he promised for the last 40 to 50 years. He chose instead, and probably wisely, to enjoy his life. One area where he had a bit of a blind spot was technology. For him, technology basically stood still. How else to explain that he never stopped using AOL as a browser? That's right, a browser. No Chrome, no Safari, no Firefox. He just couldn't grasp the difference between an email account and a browser. What can I tell you? I'm pretty sure the Blank House was the last Jewish home to still hear those three famous words, "You've got mail." On a more serious note, I do want to reemphasize that my in-laws kept a Jewish home. My father-in-law wasn't particularly observant, but he was steadfastly Jewish and proud of his heritage. Together with my mother-in-law, the two of them instilled the importance of Jewish values, especially caring for your family and others in need. Unfortunately, these last several years were really difficult, and my father-in-law was the one in need. He didn't deserve the decline he had to endure, but he was determined and tough. Even if he was limited to watching Law & Order episodes over and over, he was amazingly resilient. And even as time marched on, he clung to the days of his youth, the Sammy House at Maryland, Sinatra, and of course my mother-in-law as the young object of his affection. That affection never waned, and for over 60 years, as you've heard, and probably will continue to hear, they never spent a day apart. I've never seen any relationship quite like it. They were literally inseparable. Through all the years, building a home, family and life together, working together, traveling together, and aging together, Marilyn and Arnold, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, had a bond tighter than any Gorilla Glue you can find. All I can say to my mother-in-law is that although it seems impossible to let go, there were so many great times together, too many to count, and that's what has to be remembered, cherished, and celebrated. My father-in-law was intensely devoted to his family. He was the rock that steered the family through tough times. And he was the straw that stirred the drink as the family grew. He had an extraordinary love for Judy, Lauren, and Michael. He gave them everything he had, including long, thin legs and a flat butt. His affection was deep, and he was never shy about it. Eventually, that love and care also enveloped the extended family and all the grandkids. They just loved all the banter and the laughing between them. In the waning months, he established a bond with Lauren and Andrea, his two remarkable caregivers. They were just so incredible. I was there to see it, and we all have to thank them for the exceptional care that they provided. Alongside my mother-in-law, Lorna and Andrea, my beautiful Jamaican compatriots, kept Arnold with us much longer than he otherwise might have been. We all had our own unique relationship with my father-in-law, but that's where I want to finish on a personal note. Judy and I have been married for 35 years and started seriously dating back in 1985. But my father-in-law, and for that matter, my mother-in-law, and I started dating a year earlier, in 1984. It's true. I'm not making this up. Judy and I were friends, and I spent time at the Blank House in Potomac during the summer of '84 while studying for the law school exam. Although I was pursuing Judy, she wasn't quite ready to commit. But my father-in-law was. And for that matter, I think so was my mother-in-law. They welcomed me with open arms, let me live at the house that summer, and that, as they say, was the beginning of a beautiful relationship. At our wedding in 1989, my father-in-law gave me this maize and blue basketball and wrote on it as follows: "For my new son, David, love, Dad." It meant a lot to me then, and it still does today. He was from that day my second father, and I'll miss him every day. So rest now peacefully and finally without pain, and show those angels up there in heaven how to keep your head down, don't peek, and sink a putt under pressure.
Lauren? There are seats up front, by the way. She doesn't want to sit down.
Good afternoon, everybody. I've been coming every 3 weeks from Chicago, and all those times I kept thinking of all these wonderful things I wanted to say. And now that it was time to write, last night at 1:30 when I started, I became a blank. I'm a blank slate, and it was very hard for me to write. I am a writer, and I usually love to write. I write therapeutically, I write for fun, and even in my job I write. But writing a eulogy for your father is horrifying to me. It just sucks. Seriously, how do you sum up someone's life in a few minutes, a few sentences, and a few paragraphs? Because mine is not nearly as long as my predecessors there. First and foremost, my dad was my protector. Whether he was holding me in Ocean City and teaching me how to dive through the waves as he held me tight, whether he was checking on me at night when I screamed down the hall. Our bedrooms were at completely opposite ends, and I would scream for him to come to me because I heard a noise in the backyard, which was wooded and had a creek, and I just had a very active imagination even then. He would come to my room and tell me everything was okay. He had forethought. He would insist that I learn to drive stick shift if I wanted to get my license. And I could not understand why none of my friends' parents wanted that. And he said, because if you're ever in an emergency and you need to get out of a bad situation or if someone's hurt, you'll be the one that can drive that manual car. My dad also had more hobbies than you can imagine and took interest in anything new to him. He collected coins, fine art, and good wine. As I write this, I remember when my dad, who had this beautiful wine cellar built in our basement, my 12th birthday, he went in that chilly wine cellar and sat there for 3 hours because he wanted to scare us once we fell asleep. And scare us he did when he jumped out of that wine cellar. This shrieking was insane. He adored boating and captaining our boat called My Maryland. He did have blank check first, so I'm not. Okay. But then it went to My Maryland. We would boat on the Chesapeake Bay. My love for crabs came from those summers. And speaking of crabs, yes, food was one of my dad's love languages. For as long as I can remember, he'd circle recipes from magazines, from things he saw in a waiting room, from newspapers, for he and my mom to enjoy, and of course for my mom to cook. Thank God she loves to cook, and thank God she loves to entertain, and she made everything for him that he wanted. Even in his sickest days, when he could still circle things he could read, he would give her recipes. There wasn't a food he didn't enjoy, and of course, as it came on a bone, he loved it even more. When I was little, and I still do, I do not like bones in my food, I would pass him my lamb chops, and he would be so angry. You didn't even finish the meat. But then secretly, he was so happy because he had another bone to chew on. He loved music, and this memory came to me last night that he taught me through the symphony of Peter and the Wolf about all the instruments in an orchestra. And I think that made a real impact on me and my love of music. Also, as kids, we woke up every single weekend to music playing, whether it was Harry Chapin or Carly Simon or Carole King or Bread or Cat Stevens. That music was always just in our room while we ate breakfast. Even my daughter's name came from that, Carly. He did crosswords regularly, and he loved blank boggle and Scrabble together. I get my love for games from him. I will play any game, Canastic, Mahjong, you name it. I always want to tell my kids, play a game with me. But the one game I do not play that he wished I did was golf, because I hate it completely. And that we just didn't. I tried. I bought all the clothes and just sold them all on eBay. He was funny, and he loved telling jokes. The dirtier, the better. He made friends easily. And once you were in his circle for life. His friends, we've heard from so many of you that he played poker with, has said their game has changed so dramatically since Arnold isn't there to play. And that says a lot. He also loved hard. The love affair he had with my mom is storybook. Meeting at that sock hop when they were 13 or 15 and then marrying just a few years later is crazy to me. They were babies, but they were also meant to be. They were beshert. The respect and dedication that they mutually shared was rare and beautiful. Even in my dad's sickest days, he would light up when my mom walked in the room. My dad was also the smartest man I knew. He rocked at Jeopardy. He was an excellent problem solver and knew how to give good, solid advice. But on the flip side, he was not handy, nor was he a progressive man of the 60s. He once locked me in the bathroom after I pooped my diaper, and he waited for my mom to come home to change me. I am very, very glad I have no memory of this, but it is not lore. It is true. My mom confirmed it. My sister was also a victim of his diaper changing avoidance because he once left her strapped to the changing table while he ran down the hall to get a neighbor to help him change her. On a serious note, my dad meant the world to me. Living half a country away from my parents wasn't easy for them or for me. And my dad always, always worried about my happiness. He'd ask me constantly, are you happy there? Is your life good there? Because I wasn't around as much as my siblings. He never missed the opportunity to tell me how proud of me he was and how much he loved me dearly. When I was a toddler, I couldn't say Lauren. If anyone asked me my name, I would say Nunny. I think I just picked up on the N at the end of Lauren and just said my name was Nunny. Soon, Nunny became my nickname, and that was later shortened to Nun. My dad called me Nun all the time, probably until I got into younger elementary school years. But then as I grew up, I became Lauren. Every now and then as an adult, he'd revert and call me Nun, and I'd smile. It was just a nice memory. And Barry Helfand, who we hope will get on, still only calls me Nun. Interestingly, though, as he got sicker, he was back to calling me Nun full time. The caretakers, Andrea and Lorna, who we adore and love, would tell him Nun is here because he didn't know Lauren any longer. If they said Nun is here, I could see his face light up. And there's some kind of full circle in that moment that I'm forever ingrained in his heart and soul as Nun. Dad, I'll miss you and love you and will always carry a piece of you with me. Rest easy.
Grandchildren? Whoever's coming up,
I think they're all going to stand up together.
if they can stand here.
They'll stand on this side.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The three speakers up here and the others.
Am I going? Okay, short. Okay. I am Lindsay. I'm Arnold's oldest granddaughter or grandchild. And it's been mentioned, but I'm going to refer to him as Pop-Pop. And everyone who speaks after me as a grandchild will call him Pop-Pop, just to get that out of the way. So I want to touch on a couple aspects of his character that had the most profound impact on me, and almost certainly on my sisters and my cousins as well. The first is that despite the fact that he was whip smart, extremely professionally accomplished, and had risen above personal hardship, we've heard about the loss of his sister Arlene. Sorry, I'm reading from my phone, it's a little small. He never told stories about his life to portray him as some sort of genius or as some sort of hero, even though he was. The stories he'd share were always meant to evoke warmth and laughter from whoever was around him. So I'll just tell one. And no one's told it yet, so I was a little worried because he has so many. But he would really cherish telling us about how when he was about 10 years old or so, they lived in, I think, Virginia Beach, and he was a bit of a rascal. I think we all know that. He hid behind a sand dune on the beach to avoid being spotted by the school bus. He was 5? Oh, no. As a 5-year-old, the school bus came and left. He wasn't at school for 2 weeks. The school called and his parents and asked, where's Arnold? Is he still enrolled? He had been hanging out on the beach with some random sailor for 2 weeks instead of going to school. That's crazy. And he also loved talking about how even at a young age, maybe at the age of 5, honestly, he was a huge flirt and the girls couldn't stay away from him. So I really cherish these stories because they solidified his legacy in my mind as just how I believe he'd want it to be. Someone who's an absolute charmer, a force of lightness and happiness, someone who's relatable and funny and human, and someone who you really want to spend all of your time with and enjoy life with, which in the end is kind of heroic, if you ask me. There's one more part of his character I think is important to touch on, and we've heard it, but it's his love. His commitment to the happiness of my mom, my aunt, and my uncle was so clearly his top priority in all stages of life. That dedication extended to us, his grandchildren, who he took such deep pride in. What we'd perceive as a very small or trivial accomplishment, or just an activity, not even an accomplishment, was newsworthy to him. He'd light up. He would tell us he saw it on the news, on ESPN if it was a sport, or on another news program if it were anything else. We were his heroes, and like I said, he was ours. The very last thing, his love for my grandma Marilyn was unlike anything I've ever witnessed on screen, in writing, or in real life. Even in the final months of his life, when he wasn't doing very well and was maybe in and out of sleep, when my grandma Marilyn came into the room, it was like something completely changed, like in the very fabric of our existence, where his eyes just began sparkling and his expression warmed, and he would smile, and it wasn't just like a generic smile, but it was almost like playful and youthful, like the life was coming back to him just when he saw you. And I don't know, it was like he was healed for a moment when he saw you. I've just never seen anything quite like that. I've spent a lot of time studying science and getting into some biomedical fields, but this is something that surpassed that. Their love was unmatched, and I will think about it for the rest of my life, as I will him. I love you, Pop-Pop.
Hi, I'm Janie. I'm the youngest. It's kind of hard to fully capture the essence of someone as full of life as my papa. I remember dancing with him in bar mitzvahs. And at Lindsay's wedding. I remember him singing and playfully boop-boopy-doing his way through life and his one-of-a-kind laugh. Every single thing we did with him led to uncontrollable laughter, which inevitably would lead to his famous laugh cry. The laugh cry could spark from something as simple as me asking him my birthday, or teaching him how to use Twitter, or teasing him for still using AOL as his browser. Pop-Up was full of unique bits. He honk-honked every single time he blew his nose. He sang cheese whenever there was a camera pointed at him. He relentlessly stood by his crazy made-up stories about himself and Grandma. His playful nature was truly special, and he loved making us smile. Growing up, Pop-Up always talked about his flying car. Once I reached the ripe age of 10, I realized that there was never a flying car, or that if he had had one, he probably wouldn't have just gotten rid of it. But we maintained a running story that he and I went flying. Through the years, up until even the last time I was with him, we both still swore by that. I went flying in his magical car. Somehow, as I've gotten older, it almost feels true. Along the way, my mind created the memory of us in his Mercedes, just the two of us soaring through the sky. Pop-Up brought immense love and warmth to everyone around him. His hugs were the best. He used to come sit with me on the stairs when I was in timeout in their townhouse in Rockville. As we all went off to college and started jobs, he was so curious to know everything that we were up to. He was so excited about every update. We were his little monkeys, who he loved more than anything. But on the topic of love, as everyone has heard, what he shared with my grandma was insanely special. Their love was so palpable, you could feel it just being in the room with them. Even after 63 years, Pop-Up was absolutely infatuated with her. He constantly called her beautiful, or beautiful, as he would say. He'd whistle as she entered a room and made many, many non-funeral appropriate comments. The relationship has been such an inspiration for all of us as we've grown up. We should all hope to love and be loved as profoundly as my grandma and Pop-Up did. Today, August 2nd, is my 26th birthday. And while I wish this moment never had to come, in a sense, there's something touching about being gathered here today on my birthday. I'm surrounded by my family, celebrating a year of my life while celebrating the remarkable 85 years of Pop-Ups, and I'll know that every day, every year on this day, something will be connecting me to him. Pop-Up, I love you and I miss you, but I also find comfort in knowing that you're no longer in pain. I miss you telling us to enunciate, claiming that's why you can't hear us. I miss you accusing us of cheating in every game we ever played. I'll think of you every time someone shushes me and remember you saying, I'm going to wake the sleeping baby on the roof. I know you're up there riding around in your flying car and will fly above us every day.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carly, although Pop-Up called me Carly Robin. It would take me weeks to truly encapsulate the depth of my Pop-Up's life and the impact he's had on us, but I'll do my best to keep it short and sweet. I may be a writer like my mom, but I'm also a world-class crier, which is why I have my emotional support tissue. When I think of Pop-Up, I think of, hi, sweetie, of the sleeping baby on the roof, of honk honk and finish it up, kid. I think of whoop whoop-be-doo, cheese, and when he would call a waitress named Virginia, Alaska, despite us telling him numerous times that it's not correct. I think of our shared love of Law and Order, and I think that I get my love of storytelling from him. I think of Bal-and-Isle collared shirts that always managed to get stained during dinner, and pants that would never stay up despite the fact that he always wore a belt. I'll think of his crying laugh and this hand motion. But most importantly, I think of his unconditional love for my Mimi, for his kids, and for us. His love was expressed not just in words, but in actions. The big hugs, the raunchy jokes, and the countless stories he shared, steeped with lessons to take into the future. It may sound cheesy, but the phrase, to know him was to love him, truly describes my pop-up. He was an incredible man who left his mark on everyone he met, and I'm so lucky to have had his love for almost 30 years. Sorry. I'm gonna try to share a voicemail that, that he left me in August, because like most of my generation, we don't pick up our phones a lot of the time. So he said, "Hi, sweetie, it's Pop-Up. Just calling to tell you, as I've already told you, that I'm so proud of you." You able to read that?
I'll try.
I can do it, it's fine. I was told about your presentation you did last night, and you knocked it out of the world. It's amazing that you wrote a book. Anyways, I'll catch you later. Bye, bye. Wow, I suck. I'm so sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Justin, can you read the rest?
No. I got this. I can't predict what my future will be like without him, but I'm certain that his love has made me a better person and will forever have a place in my heart. My greatest hope is to honor the example of love, strength, character, and integrity that he set for us all. Even though he's no longer here to say he's proud of me, you have to finish.
I keep his strength with me always. The kindest words I hope to hear one day are, "Your grandfather would be proud. I love you, and we will miss you."
Aaron? Aaron?
My name is Aaron Lynchuk, and I was a friend of Arnold's. This is going to be very difficult for me. Arnold. Okay. Arnold and I go back 50 plus years. Memories we had will be lost forever if I didn't have the courage to discuss this now. It was Marilyn Arnold that introduced us to Ballin Isles and told us to come down and see this place, because they were going to retire here and we should consider it also. Well, we did. And we're here now for good, thanks to Marilyn and Arnold. Arnold was a very private and secretive person. He would tell you what he bought, but his price was such a deal. It remained secretive. You would see him drive around in a new car, and I would say, "You got a new car?" And Arnold would say, "I got such a deal, I couldn't let it go." This went on forever. I got very... There was a time Arnold and Marilyn loved Ballin Isle so much so that they sampled different neighborhoods 3 times. Each time it was such a deal, I couldn't refuse it, so I bought it. There was a time in our Jewish lives when we had to buy our wives a fur coat. My Marilyn and I were going to drive to New York to look around and see what we could buy. Marilyn and Arnold were going to look around also, so we went together. And we bought the fur coat from the same furrier. I wrote this morning, and I wrote it so fast, I was thinking all week about it, and finally this morning I wrote it, and Marilyn kept saying to me, come on, we gotta go, so you have to excuse me. That's all right. So we went together to New York and bought the fur coats from the same furrier. The girls were so excited that Arnold went into a drugstore and bought them each little cigars. Remember that, Marilyn? Yeah. Little cigars. The coats had to be made so it would be ready in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I'm in my office, and I was told that there was a phone call from New York. It was Mr. Zlotnick, the furrier. I excused myself from my patient and went to answer my phone. I said hello, and on the other side, I get an answer, your check is not good, I'm not sending you the cut. I said, what are you talking about? He says, I'm not sending you the cut. Well, it was Marilyn disguising his voice. It was Arnold disguising his voice pretty good with an accent. He really had me going. Arnold always talked about what a wonderful cook Marilyn was. One day we got an invitation to attend a formal black tie dinner at the home of Marilyn and Arnold Blank. We go to the dinner. The house was packed. The entertainment was a male opera singer who was going to sing classical Greek songs or whatsoever. This guy brought his date or girlfriend who was also supposed to sing. This guy starts to sing classical Greek songs. His girlfriend looks so bored, she gets up and looks like she gets up and also proceeds to take off her clothes. And she did. She completely stripped. This was Arnold's entertainment. Very secretive, and we'll never forget. Arnold loved cards and loved poker. He and I were in a poker game for 30 years. After which, Arnold, we had to give it up after a number of years because we didn't have enough players anymore. After which, Arnold joined another game that he was in for probably over 10 years until they moved to Ballina. Now, if you asked Arnold, how did you do? He would say, great, I won. Always his answer, I win all the time. Well, one day I was at a friend's house who was in the poker game with Arnold. And I saw a trophy there. And the trophy had an inscription on it that said, yearly card game, money lost. So on that trophy, it was for that year. So I looked at the trophy. I said, let me see the trophy. So I took the trophy in my hand, and I looked at it, and Arnold's name was there for that day. So when I saw him, I said, what gives? I mean, you tell us you always win and everything. What? He said, well, George counted wrong. These are some of the shticks that stick in my mind that you can't forget. You can't make up stories about. They're so good. We had fun times together, and to tell you, I will always miss him. He was a very, very good friend of mine.
And via Skype, Barry Helfand.
First of all, my name is Barry Helfand, and Marilyn, Judy, and Nuni. I'm really sorry I can't make it. But this funeral is very personal. I've been to a lot of friends' funerals, loving relationships with a lot of them. But I've never known anybody as long as I've known Arnold. Arnold and I go back 61 years, not 58, not 48, 61 years. Okay, and we were in law school together. I want to correct something that was the rabbi said, or somebody said, when they said Arnold came in 5th on the bar exam. That's not true. Arnold came in 2nd on the bar exam. Arnold was one of the truly smart guys, and we had essays, we had blue books. We didn't have multiple choice. And I remember finishing and walking down the aisle, and Arnold was just still writing away. And he wrote like, forgive me how this sounds, ladies, like a woman, big cursive letters, 3 words on a line. It was unbelievable, but he was very, very smart. I've heard today from a wonderful family who is related, stories about him in a most articulate way. Arnold would be extraordinarily proud of each of you who got up and spoke today. Extraordinarily proud. He was proud to me, and understand this, people. I know Arnold Blank. I lived almost with Arnold Blank. My family lived with Arnold Blank. Sitting behind me is my wife, Suzanne, my son, David, and my daughter, Deborah. Arnold was connected to us so much in a way that, when I started to think about what I was going to say, I wanted to say, Arnold loved boobs, okay? And I was afraid, what could I say, until I heard you all call it in some fancy fluted way, oh, he was sexy and all the rest. He just loved boobs all the time, and he talked about it all the time. I don't know whether you people know this or not, but my son David was 8 years old, 8 years old. And Arnold gave him a year's subscription to Playboy magazine. And David had that centerfold hidden in the closet, so we wouldn't see it. But it was Arnold. It was Arnold. I've shared 1 million meals with Arnold, 1 million meals. And you summed it up perfectly to the kids, when there never was a meal that Arnold didn't like. He ate it all right? But you need to understand the story about Virginia Beach. Somehow Suzanne and I went with Marilyn and Arnold to Virginia Beach. Well, in the course of it all, Arnold says, we have to go to Fort Story. I hope you remember this, Marilyn. Okay, it was the Fort Story Officers Club, because some family member could get us in. The meal would be $4.95. $4.25. So we get in there, and it's all you can eat. This is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All you can eat. Now we all ate. I think it was a late breakfast. Not Arnold. Arnold ate breakfast, he ate lunch, he ate dinner. He went back again and had breakfast, and he had lunch, and he had dinner, and dessert. And I am not exaggerating the thing. We traveled a lot, okay, and that's what makes this funeral so difficult for me, because we went away and we shared so many crazy kind of stories. We had a thing, and Marilyn will confirm this any day, where every time we went away, and I'm talking about we went away a lot together, we would get to a hotel and we get to a room. Now, I would get up to the room, and I want to get a good room for a change. Okay, there's never the case. Whatever room I picked on these multiple vacations, Arnold picked the better room, kept the better room, and cheated me out of the good room. Okay, we went to Colorado was the summer,
4th of July.
4th of July, and we get to the beautiful hotel. We get upstairs, and I'm going to beat Arnold. I'm going to get the room this time for me. Oh, yeah. My room was without a window. Arnold had a window, and believe it or not, he had a fan
And no air conditioning.
and air conditioning. We had no air conditioning, and we had no fan. All right. But that was every single time Arnold was out maneuvered me in so many ways. Well, I was going to tell you a lot of stories, but I know better. When you're the last person to speak and everybody starts to get antsy, I just want to end with this. All right. And I promise you, there were so many other stories I could tell about Arnold.
Because he became pregnant with Judy.
On our wedding, when we had our wedding, Suzanne and I in Philadelphia, I don't know whether Judy knows this, but it must have been a very, very good wedding because that's the night, Judy, you were conceived. All right. So we share a lot together. It turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that when you know somebody this long and you know so much about them, that they become a part of you, a real part of you. And then when you come down as we now gotten old, and I saw the crowd come in, there's an awful lot of now gray-haired guys, and most of you men know we go to a lot of funerals now. It's just the way of life, and it is life. The difference here is, my friend suffered, okay, and he really fought to live, okay. He had, as I would hear it, and I'm not going to repeat all the stuff he told me about it, but it was bad. But he always was looking forward to, can he get cured? Can he get better? And all of you are 100% correct. If I have had 10,000 conversations with Arnold, as most of you have had, then you all would have heard him say, somewhere in this conversation, my Marilyn, and my Marilyn. And that's what he told me at the end when I would call down there, and I could hear it. I could hear he was struggling, but he was saying to me, Barry, the only thing I can think about is our trips. The only thing I could think about. Okay. All the good times we had. And I said, that's the way it should be, Arnold, because that's what we did have. A lot of good times. But Arnold was clever, shrewd, cheated a little bit on golf, maybe a lot. Okay. But he was a pleasure to be around, He fulfilled his responsibility. And when he took his vows with Marilyn, his vows were, I will take care of her and I will take care of this family. And he started like I did. We had virtually nothing. And he built up a wonderful practice. Okay, Marilyn was at his side. She helped him immeasurably. But he did it. And he did it enough so that he could retire early to a place that he absolutely loved. I never heard of Ballin Isle, okay, but Arnold loved it. And you people that now live there and met him, people that I don't know, you understand what I'm saying. Arnold loved being with you, okay, his new friends, and he loved being in Ballin Isle, just loved it. It's just the end of life that makes this so damn hard. But I will end with, Arnold was a family man. He loved his family dearly. He fulfilled his responsibility by keeping them all together. Proud, you kids have no damn clue how proud Arnold Blank was of you. And he made sure I heard it probably more than any other person because I talked to Arnold so much. All right. But you showed it today when I was listening to you. You all were articulate as hell, tell you the truth. And I've heard a lot of speeches. You were good, You were emotional, and you fulfilled Arnold's real dreams by being as good as kids to him as you could be. And he was as good a parent, pop-up, grandparent, and husband as that he could possibly be. I can only end with, there's a way I don't want, I'm just happy, and it's strange to say, that he's not suffering anymore. He was my friend. I didn't want him to suffer anymore, but I wanted more of Arnold. And I can only end with, I miss him, and I really do miss him. Thank you very much.
I must tell you, I'm sorry I don't have AOL. I'm not even sure I ever had it, because I would have checked to see when the candles have to be lit, because I think I might miss it tonight. Arnold would like that joke, but I don't think you did. Marilyn, I don't know how the funeral home chooses a rabbi to officiate at a service. I really don't. I used to believe there was a roulette wheel in the office in the back, and the Blank family came in and they would swing the roulette wheel around, and Pinsky, Blank family. But today, I know, I heard the word, it was beshert. I just love your family. They are, every single one of them, extraordinary. You did want to, okay. If you take more than 5 minutes, the cook comes out. Okay, come here.
There's a lot that I could say. First of all, I know that Arnold's watching now and be so happy to see you all here and be so proud of all of you and know what you all thought. And what broke me up is his partners, Bart and Stuart, came and I had no idea. And that just really got me at the end. But anyway, I know that he's listening to all of this and he is happy, and I love him with all of my heart, and I told him there's no me without you. So I don't know what I'll do, but I just, I can't remember. They told me I was taking too much omeprazole, and I stopped taking it. So don't take that as you get older. But anyway, I just thank everybody for everything that you've done today and said, and from the bottom of my heart. Arnold will hear it, and I have to tell you, this is what I wanted to say. I pray every night for my whole family, that everybody will be healthy. If somebody's traveling, I pray. And if they're well, but every one of my family I pray for. And I kept praying that Arnold would get well. And I know it was a hard prayer, that he was just getting sicker and sicker, but I would say, God, if you could do a miracle, please make Arnold well. But then about the last week, when I prayed, I said, if you can't do that, then let him go in peace while he's sleeping. And that's what he did. And I just want to, again, thank everybody. And Arnold, I love you.
When I left your home, Marilyn, and I arrived home to my home, I pulled a poem out of my file. I wasn't quite sure because of the length of the service I was going to use it, but I think it really contains Arnold's last message to all of you whom we love so very much. Especially now, his grandchildren, most of them who are under 30, I know you don't listen to anything that's more than 3 or 4 lines. I want you to hear the last 4 lines of the poem. I'll let you know when they come. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the streets beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give to them what you need to give to me. You can love me most by sharing your joys, multiplying your good deeds. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our Torah teaches. This is it. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Shalom la'afro l'nafsho. May peace, God's own sweet peace, ever be with his soul. And may God grant each of you who mourn so deeply this day a time of quiet healing. Amen. Before we conclude this portion of the service, and those of you who can go to the graveside, it's very hot out there. Please make sure you can do that. The families asked me to announce that they will be observing the mourning period at the home of Judy and David Karp, if they've unpacked. 116 St. Martin Drive in the Ballon Isles Country Club. They will be there today until sundown, and on Sunday from 3 to 8, 3 in the afternoon to 8 in the evening. Those of you who can, please rise. El Mali Rachamim Shochem Bam Romim, Hamtse Menucha Nachonatacha Kamfesh Shechina, Nishmar Chana ben Yitzhak v'Devora, Shehalach li'olamo, Bala Rachamim Yitzror b'tzror ha'chaim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest unto the soul of Arnold Blank, who has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring him into thy presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may his repose be everlasting shalom, everlasting peace. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude the services here inside the chapel. We're going to make our way out to the graveside. It is quite a bit of a walk. If you're walking, or you may go to your car and meet us out there. It's down the sidewalk to the right. If everyone can stay in position, the casket will be taken out first. The family will follow behind, and then everyone else is invited to follow behind. So please stay in position until the family has a chance to walk by. Thank you.
He guided me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.